Matamu.
Welcome to this episode of Matamu Extra. And as always, thank you so much for being with us here on The Extra. I appreciate each and every one of you who's taken the time to listen to our extras and to the main content on the Matamu podcast. And for this extra, I had mentioned during the episode on okra that the history of okra in the Americas is very closely tied to slavery. So for this extra, I'm just going to do a slightly deep dive into that history. And to begin with, okra most probably made it to the southern United States at the beginning of the slave trade in the 1500s. And it's one of the few crops that slaves brought with them from their communities in West Africa. There is a food justice activist called Leah Penniman who describes in her book Farming While Black, which you guys should read if you can, that her ancestors, her grandma's grandma, gathered millet, black rice, okra, and other seeds and braided them into her hair and her children's hair to provide them with an inheritance in an unknown land. And enslaved workers from many different West African nations began making okra dishes when they got to the different ports scattered across the American South, and they were drawing on their home cuisines to make these dishes. And it became a mainstay of their personal gardens, and it provided extra sustenance when food was being limited by the slaveholders. The cultivation of the okra plant actually carried on the ancient West African culinary and agricultural traditions. But these traditions, of course, change and adapt in response to pressures and the agroecology of the place and time that they are in. There's a culinary historian called Michael Twitty who once wrote, "In mainland North America, okra was one of the ultimate symbols of the establishment of enslaved community as a culinary outpost of West Africa." So you have in West Africa okra featuring in various soup stews where the plant plays the role of a roux. Now, for all of those who are wondering, what is this guy talking about? So a roux, it gives thickness. It's usually flour based, and you just quickly fry, basically just fry the flour, right? Flour paste, usually wheat flour, and it gives that thickness to your stew. So now, because okra is mucilaginous, it does that almost automatically, and variations of these West African okra dishes became your Louisiana roux gumbo and South Carolina roux-less gumbo, as well as Maryland crab gumbo, and other dishes like fried okra and stewed okra with tomatoes soon became a hallmark of Southern cuisine and African American cuisine. Now, why okra spread and its popularity has actually quite a lot to do with its agricultural viability. It grows very well in tropical and subtropical climates. So in the South of America, where the summer begins early and the frost comes late, okra thrives so well. It also grows very quickly. A well-pruned plant can grow over 6 feet tall and produce maybe 20 pods per plant per week, which is quite a lot. The oily seeds were historically used in addition as beads or roasted as a coffee substitute, as I mentioned in the episode. Now, coffee substitutes made of plants like corn and okra became part of an enslaved people's daily rituals. And that versatility and history is what actually made okra a mainstay of Southern cuisine. And it's a vegetable that has sustained, as the culinary historians argue, it's a vegetable that sustained an enslaved race. And in this, month of Black History, I believe it was, it was a good thing to speak about okra and the history, because that history typifies Southern cuisine. It's, one born of conflict and subjugation. Yet, perhaps maybe because of this history, okra forms the foundation of Southern American comfort food. Much of the American food today, and world over actually, comes from conflicted spaces and people who've been subjugated. And recognizing these histories helps to deepen the connection that we have between people and their food. So it's a good thing that we can speak about the origins of food and the somewhat dark traces that come with the food. And that is all I had for this extra. I hope that you've learned something and you're able to, go out there and research for yourself, see the origins of some of these foods that you actually know about. And you'd be surprised to find the interesting origins of these foods. It's like every time I sit down and record something for this extra segment, my mind is always constantly blown by the amount of information and the rich histories behind some of the foods that we love. Now, coming up on episode 9 of the Matamu podcast, I have my friendly neighborhood influencer joining me to talk about margarine. And all of you who love and hate margarine, please, you need to listen to that episode. If you are not already subscribed, please go to Anchor FM and subscribe to our podcast. That is anchor.fm/Matamu-2. We're also on YouTube. If you haven't known that until now, I'm jealous of you because the content out there is fantastic. Please go to YouTube, search Matamu2 and hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all of you who have already subscribed and are going through the videos and are putting in comments and all that stuff. Like y'all, Mungu awabariki. And that's it for this extra. Until the next episode of the Matamu podcast, have fun, guys!